Hi, my name is Thorsten Valentin, and in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to show you how to implement SecuLution application whitelisting on any network, Windows-based network of any size. There are going to be chapter marks in the description of this video, so you may choose the chapter that you like to see right now, but I strongly recommend that everybody at least once takes a full look at the whole video. All right, let's get into it. So what you get from us is an email that provides you with the data where you can download your personal installation files, personalized, because the certificates that are inside this zip are personalized for every customer. There's a password with which you can unzip it, and also there's instructions on how to do what we're going to do right now, and that link will take you to the installation manual that we will just follow right now. So this is the installation manual. We got a quick install. Let's just follow that. So what we're going to do right now is we'll just follow all the steps that are in this installation manual. But before we actually do that, I would like to introduce to you the concept of application whitelisting. That makes sense because application whitelisting is very, very, very different from all the blacklisting approaches that our customers are used from using the traditional blacklisting-based antivirus solutions that they've been using in the past. And it is very important to really understand the consequences of using whitelisting instead of blacklisting. And to do that, we will just open a presentation here. Let me just quickly go through how application whitelisting works with SecuLution. So you have a LAN. In this local network, you have like any number of Windows-based clients, can also be servers, workstation servers, doesn't matter. Also, the version of Windows doesn't really matter. We support from Windows XP up to the most current Windows version of any brand. It may be workstations or server, doesn't matter. On any of these machines, we will, in the process of the deployment that we're going to follow later on, install a SecuLution agent. This agent integrates itself into the Windows kernel and watches over memory, over the reservation of RAM, of memory, that's supposed to be used for the execution of code. And whenever code is supposed to be executed, this agent will create hash from that code. And the hash will be sent to a local database, which means on-premise, on the customer side, there is an appliance that you get from us. This is a virtual machine that we will set up in a minute, and this machine holds the whitelist of all the hashes, where hashes always represent a software, and these are the hashes that are trustworthy software in your network. So whenever an agent finds new code that's supposed to be executed, it will check the hash against the whitelist. And for the purpose of simplifying this very moment, let's just say that the hash is already known on the whitelist. Therefore, the whitelist will immediately return an OK, and that would mean that the software can be executed, and that would mean that the impact on the workstation, on the machine, is just a couple of milliseconds. It's technical, measurable, but you wouldn't actually notice it. That sounds very simple, but it immediately raises the question, how are we going to deal with stuff that's not known to your local whitelist, which means we're talking about updates, upgrades, whenever new software is about to be executed. In that case, we do also have a cloud-based whitelist that's maintained by the manufacturer SecuLution, by us, by the security experts of SecuLution. So what we do is we fill this database with all the releases that the major manufacturers of software release. What we do is we basically look at the contract distribution network server of the main manufacturers. Then we look at what they are releasing. We download that, we unpack it, we hash it, and we fill up our database with these hashes. And the trust that we then give to the hashes on the database is based on who did we get this from. So it's not, we don't do sandboxing and behavioral analysis and static code analysis on any voodoo. The only thing we do is, who is it from? We verify that the executable or the code that's supposed to be executed is from a manufacturer who has a record of only releasing trustworthy software. And that would mean then that on this database, we do have millions and millions of hashes of trustworthy software. So whenever a new software that's not known on the local database of the customer's whitelist is supposed to be executed. So let's just say that here Mrs. Miller starts a new version of Chrome. This new hash will be checked on the whitelist of the customer. And the point is here, in this very example, this whitelist does not yet know about this this hash. And instead of, well, it can't say yes, it's allowed because it doesn't know about it. And that's one of the most important points that you need to understand about application whitelisting is when this hash is not known on the whitelist, it will not be allowed. But that would immediately mean that everything that's an update will be denied on your system, and you would have to take care of that yourself, which is the case with most application whitelisting solutions on the market. But we do have a solution for that, which is the cloud-based application database, the TrustLevel database that we provide to you. So instead of immediately saying no to the agent who requested the execution of this hash, this whitelist will forward the hash to the cloud-based whitelist server that we provide to you. So on this cloud-based whitelist server, as I said, we do have millions and millions of hashes from the releases of the major manufacturers. And so it's very likely as in 99.5% of the requests that we see on this network interface, we can give a good trust level because we already know about this good hash of this good software. So therefore, the TrustLevel database will return a good trust level to your local whitelist. And therefore, your local whitelist will see that this is a good software, and therefore it will add the software to the local database. So in case in a minute or two another user might get the same update and also might request the hash here, then the hash is already known on that database. And also it will return the database to your agent who has made the initial request in the first place. And therefore, in case your local whitelist needs to do a check on our cloud-based database, there might be a slight delay of maybe 1 or 2 seconds, but only this one time. Next time the next user will request the same hash, it's already known on your local database and therefore will be immediately allowed on this machine. That's what's happening when there is trustworthy software. Now let's talk about the other case, like Mrs. Miller on this computer gets a new software that is actually malicious. So it is an attack. So Mrs. Miller, let's just, for the sake of simplicity, let's say she got a link to a web page, and the web page makes her download a zip and tells her that she needs to unpack this zip and run the code that's inside to make sure. Then there's some social engineering involved, like make sure she's really Mrs. Miller, who she claims she is. Therefore, Mrs. Miller, being tricked from that website, will download the zip and will unpack it on her local machine. And then she will try to execute the code that's inside the zip. What then happens is basically the same as before when we were talking about how the Google Chrome update is checked. So this agent finds that there's no code, there's new code to be executed. The agent will therefore create the hash, check the hash on the central database. And this central database of yours does not yet know about this hash. The same as in the Google Chrome update. So it will then send the hash to the cloud-based whitelist server. So our whitelist server does not know about this hash. And this is the most important thing that I'd like to stress here, because this is what's actually providing you the security that you'd like to have. And it is so simple and so unforgeable. So what we do here, the only thing we need to do on this whitelist is to not know about this hash. And it's very easy to not know about something by us just not adding this the hash of this malicious software to our database and only adding trustworthy software to the database. We have immediately derived the fact that whatever malicious software we try to execute on Mrs. Miller's computer will not be able to be executed. So the hash is requested here on this central whitelist. It does not know about it. It will request the hash on our whitelist server in the cloud. It will not return a good trust level because it doesn't know about it. Therefore, it will not be added to this database, and therefore it will not be allowed to Mrs. Miller. So eventually Mrs. Miller will just get a deny, which means she can't execute the software. And therefore, because Mrs. Miller's mindset is that she tries to do good, there is something that she needs to do, like she's tricked into thinking that there is a new package come in from UPS or so, and therefore she really wants to execute that software, but she can't because it's denied. And what she's then going to do is she's going to call her tech support, so the support people. And with that, we have achieved something that's really important, because we have concentrated the ability, who can make the choice whether this is good software or bad software. This choice has been taken away from Mrs. Miller, who was never actually a person who could have made such choice, because she's not a trained security expert. But by the fact that she can't execute this malicious software, she's then like urged or forced to just call the administrator and tell him about it. She'll probably say, there's something that I need to do and I can't, and my computer's doing funny things. And what we have achieved with that is that then there's an alarm, and a trained personal support member of the support staff can then take a look into it. And that's all there is about it. It's a very, very simple solution. But when you take a look at that, in the whole concept of application whitelisting, we do not need to take care of malicious software anymore, because by not knowing about them, it's done. There's not going to be any problem with malicious software anymore. The only thing that we need to do from now on is to have all the software that we need for working on our whitelist. That's basically it. Let me just close this. Now let's follow the installation manual. So step number 1 is we need to install the SecuLution appliance. For that, like said, you get a download. I've already downloaded it. Yeah, I already downloaded the files and have unpacked them here, and we got a folder of the stuff that we need. In the SecuLution Appliance 4 folder, you will find an OVA, which is an open virtualization format, which is the format for importing the virtual machine. So what we need to do now is get this virtual machine running on our hypervisor. That hypervisor can be any hypervisor you'd like to use. It doesn't necessarily have to be VMware, but it's very simple to just use VMware. You'll find more details about how to use other hypervisors than VMware in the installation manual. However, now I'm just going to use the hypervisor here. So here we are. Now we will just create a new virtual machine from an OVF. We need to give it a name. And then we click to select the OVA. I'll just browse and go to the point, and then I'll just select next. And we are going to upload the machine. This will take a couple of seconds. Okay, here we go. The machine is running. Actually, it's starting right now. We can follow what's happening here on the console. Okay, so the machine has booted using the DHCP server, which means it has a dynamic IP address temporarily, and we will now proceed with the installation manual because we did what the manual said we should do, which is to install the SecuLution server in the first place. It's running, and now we need to remember the IP address at 16.185. Here we go. We have completed the first step. The next step is to install the AdminWizard, and therefore I'm just going to go to the folder and just run the installer. And now we just can start the AdminWizard. You can select the language of your choice, and here we will enter the IP address of the server that it got via DHCP, so we can look it up again in case we missed it. 16.185. All right, here we go. And the password is in that email, or also it's also mentioned here that the first initial login password is password. Copy that quickly. All right, here we go. This tells us this is the first initial installation we've ever done, so we need to make sure we either restore from a backup in case you had SecuLution application whitelisting before, or there are things that we need to do upon first installation. Therefore, there is a setup wizard that will take you through the necessary steps. It'll tell you about what's not done yet and what we need to do. So we have a choice between this is a reset or a reinstallation of an already existing installation. So we might have a backup which we can restore now, or we say it's a new installation. Let's say it's a new installation. Therefore, we need to now configure the server to its static IP it'll from then on have. And you could have many or more than one SecuLution appliances in your network. However, in this installation, we only have one, and usually one is enough. But for larger installations that have thousands of clients to secure, you can have a cluster of machines that you set up. Now we got this one server, and we need to give it the new IP address that it will from now on have. And after we click on save, the machine can restart under its new static IP address. We just choose that, and the AdminWizard will come up with the login screen as soon as the machine is ready. Okay, the machine has been detected as to be up again, so we can log in. And there we are again. And now we need to look what the setup wizard asks us to do. The next step would be to do the activation of the machine. I'll do that now. I'll just click on this. It'll ask me, do I really want to do that? Yes, I want to do it. That's it. Activation succeeded. Next, we need to do so we've gone through the AdminWizard installation and we've set the IP address. Next step would be to change the login password. So the default password is now password. To change the login password, just go into Appliance, login password change, and then you just enter a new one. Done. Next step. So next, we can add a new learning group in the Active Directory. Reason for that is there are multiple ways to add new software to the whitelist. One of them is just to start the software using a certain Windows user account. The only thing you need to do is just have a secondary account that you usually don't use for logging in, and then you start the to be learned software only by right-clicking on it and selecting start as different user, and then you can use a certain user account that you can define in the console here. So you do a Active Directory replication, which means it'll load all the data from your Active Directory regarding users and groups and stuff. And now you go to Learn Sources, and there you define a learn user. And by define, I mean you select one that you have configured in your Active Directory, and that's what you need to do. You just go into your Active Directory and create a new group. You can call it whatever you want to. You then later on select it in here, and in that group you create a bunch of user names that you create for the single purpose of that you can just run software using that account. So we did the ID replication. Now we can configure learn user like I just did. Now we can go through the client configuration. Actually, there's not much to do. This is the standard, and the standard is very close to, well, in the main parts, it's the same as as shipped, and the default setting is. So therefore, the only thing I think we really would have to change is that the message that's being shown to the users. The default deny message, that's the message that will be shown to a user when a program is denied. You can change that and use the recommended sentence here. You can configure stuff like so. You can do the configuration of the details like we suggest you do here, but basically that should be the defaults already. Let me just quickly go through that. Yeah, you define a new password, disable notifications on. That's on, that's right, that's correct. It's correct, it's all correct. It's all correct. A quick explanation about why we choose to allow everything in offline mode. We will do an import of this very computer, or any computer you choose for that purpose, in order to add a couple of thousand entries to the whitelist of software that we know about is already trustworthy, and we only know that of software that we set up ourselves. So usually I just set up a new Windows machine. For every OS that I'm using in our company's network, I have a machine that's set up from scratch, and of that machine I know it is definitely secure. There's not malicious software on that. And from that machine, I'll just, in a couple of moments, I will just create all the hashes of the software that is on that very machine. And then later on, we will have to turn on a learning mode, which will then in turn learn all the software that's not yet been on the master computers, on the sample computers that we've been learning from. And in this learning mode, the system will learn everything, which means learning means it will not deny it. This is the question. Why would you want to deny something just because the agent is offline? Usually you wouldn't. You'd say offline is probably going to be best if the behavior of the agent is the same as if the SecuLution server appliance was reachable online. And therefore, we just say, as long as we're in learning mode, we select do not check for a password or ask the user, whatever, just allow everything. And then when you've got contact to the server again, learn on the server all the stuff that you have learned while in offline mode. That's why this is maybe a little bit counterintuitive to have in a whitelisting solution the setting to allow everything when offline. But during the phase of the initial learning mode, that totally makes sense. All right. Next step is to learn from this computer, which means what I've just talked about is that we need to import this very computer into the list of trusted applications. That can take a while. I'll just start it quickly now. So we go into import sources, and then we choose to learn from this computer. It'll scan through the whole computer and import every single program that is on this computer and create a hash from that and import that into our whitelist. This will take a while. You don't have to watch it doing its thing. It's gonna take for maybe an hour or so. Just leave it running and come back after an hour. I'll speed up the video here for a bit. Yeah, importing can take some time, but you don't have to sit there watching it. Just leave it running, and then afterwards you're done, and you have imported nearly 40,000 hashes to your whitelist, which represents the software that is on this computer. Let's continue in the installation manual. So we did this. Next step would be to do a SecuLution appliance reboot in order to trigger the immediate creation of the offline cache. I mean, you can also wait, but usually people would like to continue just immediately to work on this. And to speed things up a bit, you can just initiate a reboot. And after the reboot, the machine is fine again, and we can log in again. And now it's telling us that we're currently in the first mode that the machine starts up in whenever it's being started up blank without any data on it yet. Reason for that is, if you were to install a new database that would replace, or a new application whitelisting appliance, and that would replace an existing one, because whatever, you move the machine from one to another and choose to restore it from scratch or set up a new hypervisor. In case you set up a new appliance that does not have the data or the whitelist on its database yet, that would mean that every hash that every agent would request or would check against the server would be denied. And that would be a big problem, because when everything's denied, all the machines can do is like shut down. That's not what you want. And therefore, the machine or the SecuLution application whitelisting appliance will always boot up into an initial learning mode as long as it's empty and does not have the data yet. And therefore, the first learning mode that it came with when it was set up initially for the first time just a couple of minutes ago is still on. And that's what this warning tells you about, that you still need to turn it off. But apart from that, system is ready. Let's just take a look at the next step that we need to do. We need to configure the agent deployment. That's in the tab Client Management. I'll just quickly do it here. You just give the path. And that's it. Done. I mean, that's quickly done here because we've had this path active before from previous installations. Well, what you usually need to do is you have a path that you choose, and then the AdminWizard will copy the files into the path. And this path needs to be accessible by every user in your network with read and execute permissions, no write permissions, obviously. And when you start the AdminWizard, obviously the AdminWizard will have to have write permissions to copy the data into that path. Anyway, it's not really complicated. The details are in the manual here. What we could do next is add some trusted signatures. So in case you've got manufacturers of software that you would like to allow generally, just because you've got your own partners who you're working with where the software is coming from, you just need to add that to the whitelist. That could be easily done by some drag and drop or stuff, but we don't need to do that now. Next thing would be to configure the automation, which means we would configure the system so that it does certain tasks automatically every night or every whatever you choose what time it be. But to do that, we need to execute or start the AdminWizard with admin privileges, because it will create a scheduled task on the task manager. And to do that, you have to have admin privileges. Usually you don't have to have that. The AdminWizard can run fine without admin privileges, but I'll just do that now quickly. Log in again. Now that with the admin is here, create an automation on this host. You can choose the user account that's going to be used to that. I'll paste it in here. Okay, so it's going to repeat, the automation is going to be repeated every day, and then you choose a time when, and we want to set up a logging automated action. So you want to have a log file of what's happened. You want to have a backup that's being taken before it does any changes to the database. You can also have a second backup after the AdminWizard has performed its nightly task. That's why you keep the backups. You want to have the whitelist cleanup, which means every database has a limit. Even though this is a big one, you still can't have the database always growing. And there's got to be some maintenance work that would remove unnecessary or hashes that are not being used anymore. And we've set up a recommended timeout of 180 days. So whenever something's not being used since 180 days, it'll be removed from the database. And that's what you really want. Also, when there's changes in the Active Directory, you want to have an automatic Active Directory replication, so you don't have to do that manually. And let's say you've got a path somewhere where you've got changes for a software that you're deploying automatically. You can add this directory of this or this path to automatically import all the changes that are in that path every time this automatism is being executed. That's it. We can close that again and come back to what we're going to do next. So we've done the automation. Now we need to do the agent deployment. Agent deployment, actually I haven't done that yet. I'm going to do it again. So what you do is you can choose from all the computer objects in your Active Directory on which of them the agent is supposed to be deployed. So we have this client management. There's the list of machines that are secured or not secured. Currently, all the machines are not secured here. So I can just go through the list of machines, and that would mean that on these computers, the agent is going to be installed automatically via a GPO. All right, so we leave that running for 2 weeks or so to make sure that all the agents are really actually deployed and there's nothing in the way. I recommend that you come back to this in a day or two and check whether the number of secured computers has increased and the number of not secured computers has decreased. That would mean that the agents are actually deployed properly. And then after a while, let's say a week or two, you just check in the logs how many entries are in those logs that indicate that there have been new entries learned to your local database. And when this gets under a certain threshold, like for example, you got less than 10 entries a day, then it's already good enough to just turn off the learning mode. This can be done here easily by just click on remove that learning mode, and then the system is secure, and that's it. Then we need to look through the software that has been learned during the learning mode. To actually do that, I will not remove the learning mode now, but instead I will just install an agent manually here on this machine. I know we've been talking about this. We can also wait until the client management rolls them out and deploys the agents. But right now I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to do a manual installation of the agent on this very computer. Therefore, the agent will need to be, the computer will need to be rebooted, and we do have the agent installation in this folder, and I just need to run that. But I can't just double click it because I need to give it parameters of where to find the server. So we need to run this command prompt as administrator. I can cd into that path, cd. Then we run the auto setup xc/server equals https:/. Now, oh yeah, how do we know what to enter here? So this is a good moment to talk about how do we find out how to do certain things with the agent or the product itself that's not in this list of things that we need to do when we initially installing the system. For example, I now want to do a manual installation of the agent, and that's not part of this installation manual here. I do recommend that everybody reads through the whole installation manual and also the FAQ, because FAQ means frequently asked questions, and that's what it is. It's the questions that people are asking. And let me just talk you through what you'll find in the FAQ. So the FAQ is good to read through. It'll definitely help you understand things better, but you can also just Control F and then find the stuff that you want to know about. So we want to know about the manual installation. That's right. We look it up and we see test a manual installation. And this is actually what it does. So we can copy that and paste that into the CMD, but I can also type it myself because it's not too complicated. Here you obviously have to give the server to connect to. That's it. When I fire enter now, it'll automatically, and without asking, there is not going to be a prompt that asks me, do you really want to reboot? This does an automatic reboot. And the purpose of that is you can use that in deployment software. If you have third-party deployment software that will roll out the agent for you, you don't need to click any message away or stuff. It's like running silent, and therefore this command will now automatically reboot the machine. I could just check quickly if there's anything that I need to close. No, there's nothing open. Just click on it, and this will do the reboot. After a couple of seconds, the machine boots up again, and we can now see that the icons are being loaded. And this is the icon of the SecuLution agent. This represents that the agent is being secured. Let's look at the next steps that we need to do. Let's go back to the install. So what we've tried to simulate here is to wait for the agent deployment. This is what we've done manually now. And now this system learns, for example, for the next 2 weeks, all the software that's being executed that was not on the whitelist at the time where we did the import of this golden image of this master computer. After the 2 weeks, we need to check the hashes that were learned during this learning mode. And for that, I will now add something. Chrome, let's do a Chrome installation. Done. Now we can start Chrome. Chrome's just working. So let's take a look. After we have let this learning mode run for 2 weeks, we now need to check what has been learned in learning mode. Therefore, we start the AdminWizard again. We log in. And now we need to turn off the learning mode. And now the system is secure in terms of there's no software that can be executed that's not either on this whitelist or on the TrustLevel database that's maintained by the SecuLution manufacturer. But the next job, according to this manual, is that we need to check the hashes that were learned in learning mode, because we can't be sure that all of that is really secure and clean. So what we do is we go into the whitelist, we sort it by classification, and here we've got stuff that's been learned in the learning mode, and stuff that's been imported from this sample computer, and stuff that's from SecuLution. What's in the sample computer classification? Everything that's been imported on this very first import of procedure that we did, where we imported from this computer. So we know that's all good software. We don't have to look in here because that's known trustworthy software. Then we got the stuff that's been learned in learning mode, and we do have something that's called SecuLution. Now that's the client management. This is in here because it has been imported when we set up the client management system. And the AdminWizard knew, okay, there's software in here that we need for the client management, and we need to allow it, and therefore it has been automatically added to your whitelist. But we now need to take a closer look at what has been learned in learning mode. So we go into learning mode, and that was the particular learning mode. And during that learning mode, these are the devices and software that have been learned in learning mode. Let's just reclassify the devices. I could just click on it. I edit the classification and just call it device. I can use the semicolon as a separator, so I call that device mass storage, which I don't know if anybody has a CD-ROM, but still. That's the keyboard. That's the root hub. Okay, we can always press F5 to reload the list, so the stuff that's been removed from this classification is being moved. Now we got stuff in here that has been learned in the learning mode. Here it's only 7 entries. In your real life setup, you would have had this running for 2 weeks or so, and you may have deployed the agent onto 1,000 or more computers. Obviously, this list would be a lot longer than just our 7 elements. Doesn't matter really, because you just click on Control A to select all of them and click on Check Trust Level Online. That would mean that the AdminWizard will now contact our central cloud-based TrustLevel database and will check every hash whether it's known to be good software or not. That is usually quite quick, just a couple of minutes maybe, and then we do F5 to do the reload again, and we can drag this a bit to take a look at which trust level do we have. And now let me just quickly say something about the trust level. So if we sort this list by trust level, you see there's one entry that has a trust level of 3, and there's a couple of entries that are with a trust level that's higher than 3. What do these trust level mean? When you configure learning sources, which means where would the application whitelisting database learn new hashes from? We can have a learning mode that we set up manually. We can have a learning user like we set up the learning group. We can also use the SecuLution TrustLevel database, which is the central database that we maintain in the cloud. And in here, you configure a threshold, which means whenever a trust level that's being returned is equal or higher than the number that you give here, only then the hash will be added to your local whitelist. You can't set it lower than 4. So the minimum trust level is 4, and recommend just leave it like that. Whenever there is positive indications for this is good software, good and trustworthy software, we will return a trust level equal to 4 or greater. For that reason, you can easily say whenever something has a trust level that's 4 or greater, we can add it to the database. But the trust level on this application whitelisting appliance, on your whitelist, on your database, the trust level It's just a meta information for us humans to understand where is it coming from, how did we get to this hash. Something that's in this whitelist will always be allowed no matter what the trust level is. The trust level is something that we can use for ourselves to find out, what is the stuff that we still need to examine, to take a deeper dive into, to look at why is it here? How did it come to this place? Okay, it doesn't really matter that this software now has a trust level of only 3, which means 3 means the trust level database in the cloud can't tell you anything about it. It just doesn't know about it. Neither does it know it's bad, nor does it know it's good. It just doesn't know about it. That's trust level 3. And trust level 4 and higher means there are good indicators for that this is a good software. So all of that, this and that, we don't need to take care of. I can, and which I usually do, I can group stuff. So I would click on these, and because this is all related to the Google Chrome installation that I just did, I just mark this and say edit classification, and I call it like tools, Google. Just let's call it 109. And now I have reclassified this. So if I press F5, there's only this one software that's remaining. Now I need to examine this software because the trust level database couldn't tell me anything about it. So I would need to find out as an administrator, as the next step when I'm doing the installation of the whole product SecuLution application whitelisting, after we've deployed the agents and then we've set up everything, and then we've had this 2 weeks of learning mode. After that, I need to make sure that every software that is in our whitelist is only good and trustworthy software. And we've gotten rid of all the software that the trust level database already knows about that is good. But there is something that's going to be left over. And this is a perfect example because this software is not known to the trust level database in the cloud. But I do know it because I am the administrator of this network. And this is actually a tool that we wrote ourselves. The trust level database in the cloud already incorporates all the results that come, for example, from virustotal.com. So there is absolutely no sense, it does not make any sense to check this software on VirusTotal, because had VirusTotal known that this is bad and malicious software, we would have already known about it and we would have already had a bad trust level. But since this is a neutral trust level, which says we don't know, neither do we know good, nor do we know bad, we don't know about it. That also means we don't also know that it might be bad, because we don't have a bad reputation from VirusTotal. That doesn't add anything to check this software here with an additional virus scanner or on VirusTotal or so, because it's already included in the result of when we say we don't know about the software. But anyway, in this case, I know about the software. Technically, I wouldn't have to do anything because it's already running. It can be executed because it is on the whitelist. It doesn't matter what the trust level is, as I said. But to tidy things up, what I like to do is I like to reclassify it. So I'll just say this is a tool. We wrote this, and it's time management. That's the tool that we use for it, and also can give it a higher trust level. It doesn't really change anything. It's just it doesn't alarm anymore if I in the dashboard press F5 to check are there hashes that have a trust level less than 4. That's it. Now the system is secure. I can run any software that is in my local whitelist or on the whitelist of the company SecuLution, this trust level database in the cloud. When it's on that, it's easy to execute the software. Let me just quickly get a 7-zip. So I've quickly copied 2 files into this temp folder. One is 7-zip and one is called unknown to TrustLevel. This one I actually compiled myself. It's something that I wrote with which I want to simulate that this is unknown software and we don't know anything about it. It could also be malicious software like ransomware that just the virus scanners don't know yet about. Like, for example, you upload this one to VirusTotal and no VirusTotal virus scanner would say it's malicious software. Still, it can be a ransomware, just the virus scanners haven't detected it yet. So when I try to run this software, I expect now that it is going to be blocked. Let me just give it a try. And it is blocked. So Windows tells me it can't execute the software. And I also get a message from the agent that says, well, actually, this is the text that we've just configured in the first step in this video. So it tells me where the path of this file is and why I can't execute it. And also, we just had a message from Windows because when we have a new entry in the log, we get an alarm so we can see what's going on in our network. The second example is that I've got a version of 7-zip here. This is in the database. It's not in this local database here. It's not in the database of my local whitelist, but it's part of the database on the cloud-based database, the TrustLevel database that the SecuLution maintains. So if I try to run this now, I can. And I can because this is known to be trustworthy software by SecuLution. So there is not a lot that you need to do. Actually, you don't have to do anything. The stuff just works. The only thing when you need to do something manually is when you have your own local software that's not coming from the major large manufacturers. In that case, it might be necessary to quickly turn on a learning mode or to drag and drop the software onto here. Like you pull it in like so, and the AdminWizard will just ask you how are you going to do with it. For example, you can extract it and give it a classification and a trust level, and it's as simple as that. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching. You don't have to leave a like and subscribe. I don't care. I hope you like the software, and I hope you enjoy the security that SecuLution gives to you, because this is a new era. You'll never have any worries about any ransomware or malicious software in general anymore. Have fun. Bye.